twist and turn my mind until I don't know who I am. Mirror man.
Good morning and welcome to a new edition of the Arsenal Opinion Podcast. We are dropping into your feeds unexpected at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday in England. I'm joined by the one, the only, Johnny Cochran, and we are here to talk about Arsenal. Johnny, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. It's one of them, isn't it, where international break, usually it's, as I often like to say, it's that Pablo Escobar meme, walking around your house, you know, in some pulled up jeans like Simon Cowell, just wondering where your life's going. But we had a little bit more interest in this band of international fixtures. Obviously, we've got a huge game coming up, so it's interesting to look at rivals. But the real thing, the real needle mover, has been a debut for a starlet of ours, and I can't wait to talk about it because it's been front page news, quite frankly. A star is born, Pete. Star is born.
Yeah, we put the gammons back in there. Back in the box. Take your championship opinions elsewhere. Fuck off. Yeah, we've got a lot to get through. It's a surprisingly interesting international break. It's the worst thing about living in America is the Americans don't give a shit about England when it comes to international football, and you have to really hunt to find the game, and they put it on Fubo TV, which is like, do you have Fubo TV in England?
I think you can get it, but I haven't got it. It's not commonplace anyway.
It was supposed to be like Netflix for sport. Everything is geared around making it easy to find sport. You pay $85 a month, and it's just all of the, instead of it organizing by like Yellowstone or whatever, it's all about the football. And I'm like, I'm not paying $85 to watch England play. And I wish I did now. I wish I did, because I've missed out. I've by being a little bit tight, I've missed out on seeing MLS work the absolute magic. You know what, Johnny? I was listening to Thomas Tuchel after the game, and there's a real difference. It's like an MLS tuna sandwich, listening to Gareth Southgate, and then listen to Tuchel, and it's like getting a steak at Peter Luger's. Absolutely fantastic. He is such an incredible communicator. You know, he's probably one of the best communicators we've ever had as an England manager, and he's not even English. I just love listening to him talk about football. He's so interesting. He's Arsene Wenger-esque, the way that he talks about football, don't you think?
He's very, very tactically astute. There's no question about it. And for what it is, I think Gareth Southgate's a good communicator. I just don't think he's as tactically sound. He had some very wise words coming out here this week, Gareth Southgate, talking about the negative impact on young men that we get from divisive figures that you see in social media, the likes of Andrew Tate and stuff, and how damaging they can be to young men growing up. And so I think Gareth Southgate is a very smart, intelligent, well thought out man, but he's just not as tactically astute as the elite in the managerial world. And I think that Thomas Tuchel, he's got the hardware to say, listen, mate, you know what I mean? It's Champions League. It's like, let's go. I'm up against anyone. So what is interesting, I think we're going to get onto it, is when if what you were talking about is Tuchel's assessment of MLS and his tactical, his propensity to play in different positions, that was very interesting, because suddenly you've got a guy who has a club manager who is incredibly switched on tactically, but then he's going up to senior level when there's no longer a bit of a dearth, a little bit of a disconnect with someone who's trying to just throw pieces at the wall and see what sticks. This guy actually goes, no, I love this tactical approach, and the boy's very intelligent, so I can use him and he can function in the way I want this national team to play as well.
Yeah, he also doesn't care about other people. Did you hear him when they said, "What did you make of England at the World Cup or the Euros last year?" And he basically said, "No style, no urgency, no identity to speak of." I'm like, "Woo!" He said that. I think he said the players were more concerned about not losing than taking advantage of their attacking prowess and winning. And I was like, "Wow, poor Gareth sitting up there doing God's work, talking about those disgusting influences that all the teenage boys like these days." I really appreciate him in that ambassador role, like speaking some sense. I don't know whether Gareth Southgate really connects with 14, 15-year-olds. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have the source. If Mourinho was saying stuff like that, I think it'd probably connect. But Mourinho, if he was an influencer, would probably be Andrew Tate. Don't you think? He'd be saying all sorts of crazy shit.
Exactly, Pete. And I kind of think that's the point. I think we probably need to get a little bit back to people being respected for being nice people and being, emotionally intelligent and stuff. And listen, I understand why people had issues with Gareth Southgate. If you're invested in watching England at international level, he must have been quite frustrating. Obviously, I watched England, but I care about it a fraction of what I do. Arsenal, obviously, I don't really even watch the games in normal times outside of major tournaments. But I like Gareth Southgate, the man. I'll stand by that. He's never been able to connect with youngsters since launching Ball Boys shoes. Do you remember that? After the 96, he missed the penalty, and then he came out as the brand kind of superstar that they wanted to attach themselves to. Ball Boys shoes, and it was just the worst marketing campaign ever because they signed Gareth Southgate, and he's most famous at that point for missing a penalty and knocking England at the Euros. And suddenly they've got to stick with him and try and sell trainers. Needless to say, that brand didn't stick around for long.
His best advert was when he did the Pizza Hut advert, and he was sitting at the Pizza Hut buffet with the bag over his head. That's pretty funny. Not taking yourself too seriously. There are people outside your bedroom window burning effigies, and you're all doing Pizza Hut adverts. I like that swagger.
Absolutely. And Pete, I know we're obviously getting to hottest of takes, and that will be football related, but let's do a bit of this, shall we? Look, in the background there.
What's that, Johnny? What's that?
It's a dirty little YouTube trophy, that is. All it says on it, Pete, nothing too crazy. It says Arsenal Opinion Podcast, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now, I wanted to bring this up because when you first said that, we got the awards, I remember saying, look, we've got to make a big deal. And I don't, I'm sure you won't mind saying, I don't think that you don't naturally want to make a song and dance about what we do, because it's not like, it almost feels a bit arrogant. But I have been very keen, I should say, to say, you've got to put it out there. When we go out and do stuff, at the end of the day, this is something that we all love doing, but it's also work. We also put a lot of work and energy and passion into it. And when we achieve things in this world, it's very important. And this doesn't just relate to podcasts. Shout about your successes. There are too many people out there who will be more than forthcoming in talking about your shortcomings. And when you have a moment where you can, sit there, reflect and say, we've done something special there, I think it's really important to flag that up. And it's a big shout out to everyone who supported us on the podcast as well. Didn't come overnight. It's been a journey, obviously.
Well, the trophy's been a journey because I haven't posted it.
I mean, oh my God.
I've had it in my car for 3 weeks.
We won't even go to that. That's a separate pod, to be fair, and that might be a therapy on its own. But the reality is it's here now, and you not only have improved your background, the aesthetics of your basement with a little, chandelier there, and the drum set.
Is that some drums?
This guy's getting very naughty in that basement.
100,000 followers, and I get a set of nice drums. That's it.
Exactly.
That's the influencer life.
Get the trophy on your wall, your drums next to it, and the chandelier. But either way, I just wanted to say that even if there are other people out there who would think, "All right, you don't want to shout about it." The reality is it's important to put it out there when you've achieved something, stuff that we can be proud of. I'm proud of it, and thank you guys for supporting us and helping us get there.
We do. We appreciate all of you. And that YouTube trophy's wrong, Johnny, because we got 143,000 subscribers. 143. Unbelievable. We should put more stuff on YouTube, to be honest. We haven't really been doing that lately. Listen, we've completely forgotten. We're 9 minutes in and we haven't even...
Hottest of takes.
Hottest of takes.
The AOP, hottest of takes. Make it spicy.
Johnny Cochran, there's only one place to go this week, and it's to you. Make the hot take spicy, please.
Yeah, so I know after the Chelsea game, I came away and I was a little bit deflated, and I stand by that. I mean, some people, and I completely understand the notion that you look at that result and you're like, let's just focus on the fact we've beaten a scummy little rival club of ours. And yes, it wasn't as convincing as you like, but we did it. And I do get that. But part of why I was deflated was it's all about Madrid for me. It's all about how we step into that big moment and the confidence that we're feeling. And In that moment, I was a little bit deflated with Arteta's approach, and it kind of felt like a bit of an insight into how he would approach the Madrid game, and it would be a little bit more just try and stay solid and maybe nick a goal. And I don't think that will be a successful route for us, because obviously we have to be solid anyway, and that is something that we'll lean on. But we are going to have to open up and try and go at Madrid. We're not going to be able to win. I don't think we're going to keep Madrid out in both legs from scoring goals. So that means, ergo, we are going to have to score goals. And it really comes down to this, and this is one of my hottest takes is, ultimately, I said it before, but I'll say it again, what it really is going to come down to is obviously the team playing well, but one man, it's Bukayo Saka. And it's going to be about how he can come back from his injury, how he can reintegrate back into the team, and how effective he can be from the jump. And my hottest of takes is, I believe in that guy. Why wouldn't you believe in him? There's been a little bit of a reminder of what this guy was doing before he went down injured. Listen, there's only one guy in this league, one guy who can say that he was outright performing better than Bukayo Saka this season at that point, and that's Mohamed Salah. And that's ultimately, he hasn't got injured. Who knows if Saka would have kicked on and started, putting up Salah numbers. We don't know. But that's the echelon you're talking about with this guy. It's easy to be out of sight, out of mind. We know we've missed him, but to genuinely understand how big a player he is for us. And I think when you talk about players who are elite, who are world-class, no question, we don't have world-class debates about Saka anymore. That's just a done deal. That would be redundant. When you are a big player, you look forward to the brightest lights. And I think he's going to rip it up. I'm expecting, even if he doesn't start the first game, I'm expecting him to score over this in the course of this tie. And I think that we absolutely will have a chance, because Bukayo Saka is going to have a big breakout game. And I honestly think that he might well spur us on to success. So my hottest of takes is I'm back believing again, because I'm high on that Bukayo Saka juice right now.
I like that hot take, Johnny. I do think that your illness took you down a level in the last podcast. I think if you weren't ill, I think you would have said beating Chelsea at home, who are in the top four, is fine with no forwards. Basically, no forwards. I think you would have been. I think you would have been in a better mood, and I wasn't feeling great either. It just took it down. We maybe went a little bit too hard. Somebody put a really interesting comment during the show, and they said they thought Arsenal were practicing transition football for the Madrid game against Chelsea, the way that we set up. And I thought that was quite interesting, because I don't think I don't even know what playing Madrid is going to look like. I don't know how you play Madrid. Like, we're not a team that goes all out in attack. Like, we're kind of happy with like 50-55% possession, but we're also happy with 30% possession, depending on who the team is. And I think we're a team that's much more akin to sort of setting up around what the weaknesses of a team are. And if you watch Madrid games, if you watch that Atletico Madrid, it wasn't sufferable from Atletico. They just got them in transition time and time again. They got in so many good positions going forward. Simeone's son had some unbelievable chances. Like Courtois did, he earned his pennies in that game. So I think Arsenal are just going to do what, we're just going to do what we're going to do against Liverpool. Just wait and see if you can get in behind. And I think what we've lacked in that forward line is Bukayo Saka's pace, but also his control in the forward line. And the idea of him coming into the mixer in a different position other than the right, he's going to lift whoever's on either side of him. He's going to give the team a special aura. And I think the reason we can beat Madrid is one thing, it's our defense. I think we've got the best defense in the world. We're going up against the best attack. And Bukayo Saka, I think, could dine against that defense. If Bukayo Saka gets two chances, he's scoring one in a game like that, especially in the away game. I would love him to do a bit of a Thierry celebration off the back of it. But yeah, I'm starting to believe a little bit as well, Johnny. I'm starting to believe a little bit. My hottest take is, and we'll lead into this, so I won't go too hard, but I think all of this nonsense that's been generated around Miles Lewis Skelly looking nice, having fun for his team photograph, generated by opposition fans that hate the fact that Arsenal have got another superstar in their ranks. They hate it because they didn't expect it. This isn't Ethan Winieri coming through. This isn't Max Dowman. Even us, Johnny, even on this podcast, no one was expecting Miles to be getting this many minutes this season. No one's expecting him to explode on the scene. And I think a lot of the hatred of Miles, I don't think, there's definitely racism. There's always racism on Twitter. I think a lot of it is rival fans hate seeing young players break through at other clubs. Man United fans are like, Kobe Mino, he's the guy. He's not the guy. I'm sorry, he's not the guy. Liverpool, Harvey Elliott, he's going to be the guy. Not the guy. MLS, I'm sorry, Johnny. He's the fucking guy. He's the guy. Then he bursts onto the international scene. And you know what? Even the racists, they can't hate somebody that scores goals and looks like they're having fun on the pitch. They get completely nullified. He's got big character. He's got big game mentality. Tuchel absolutely loves him. He's made his debut, and now there's silence because all those people that really wanted to have a pop at him, they can't anymore. They can't. Miles is going to take over this country, and I fucking love him. So my hot take is all England needed to do was see him do that last night. Now you can all shut the fuck up.
Well, we're going to jump into that in a second anyway, so I'll save some of mine for that. Just to come back to something you were saying, though, in riposte to my hottest takes, the issue or the cause for concern, Pete, is I agree. Obviously, we're all in full agreement. We've got the best defence in the world. Madrid have the best attack in the world. But the problem is we've seen that has led to some shortcomings in the league because if you look at domestically, Liverpool have the best attack in the league. We have the best defence. And ultimately, over the course of a season, I know it's slightly different dynamics, but we've come up short. And obviously, there are other aspects, injuries and whatnot. But the difference being, if you have the best attack in the league, then you can always score more goals. The moment you concede a goal, if you can't score, you're maybe getting a draw, but that's about it. But if you can nick one, but Liverpool can win, 4-3, 5-4, whereas Arsenal, if they don't keep that clean sheet, will struggle sometimes. And so that's my issue, which was worrying me. And the reason that was, because I know what you mean about me being ill, but what it really was, the biggest issue was that he didn't play Muneri. It really bothered me that he didn't play Muneri against Chelsea. And that's because I don't want Arteta to keep throwing good money after bad with players who, for me, have shown that he shouldn't trust them. Leandro Trossard stinking the gaff out for weeks. Martinelli has been up and down even at his best this year. And Muneri will give you up and down. But I want to see him, I said it all along when Ødegaard was out, stick Muneri in because he has special. And once he clicks with the good players around him, there's opportunities for him to bang in spurts. When you talk about us being in transition, you're completely right when you think about Saka. But our biggest issue at times is when Martinelli goes on a break, he doesn't know what to do when he's in. He has brain fart moments, or he'll cut back and he'll slow our play down. So we're nowhere near as devastating in transition anymore because we don't have ruthless players at the tip of the spear anymore. Obviously, if you're saying, which is kind of the point I was making, that you're converted once Saka comes back to feeling yet again that we're dangerous in transition because he can do it. I'm all bought in because I know that he can do it. But it's just some of the other guys I don't trust in those positions. If there's a big one-on-one, can you finish for the game? Do I trust Martinelli? No. Do I trust Trossard? No. I trust Saka. And, I would trust Muneri in that situation more. That's all I was saying. So, that ties it in a no.
I do think we can't be like Arteta's butchered this entire team and then be against him resting Ethan Muneri. I mean, he's played a lot of minutes. He's only a kid. That's what I'm worried about with Miles as well. We sat in the stands, Johnny, when Jack Wilshere made 52 appearances in his first season. He never recovered from it. So I would rather be keeping Ethan Muneri fresh for this back end of the season. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do and whether he starts on the right. I mean, I guess he has to start on the right, really. Like, why wouldn't he start on the right? Saka's got more capability to play across the front line. So that's going to be really interesting. But the reason our season has faltered, Johnny, is injuries. It's just straight up injuries. No team has ever won the Premier League with key players out for as long as our players have been out. The Athletic ran a piece on it. And you say that, having a better forward line is more important than having an amazing defense. I would argue against that, Johnny. Man City, 5th in the league. They've scored more goals than us. Tottenham, they've scored 2 more goals than us. 14th in the league. Brentford have scored 50 goals this season, 11th in the league. What do they all have in common? They've all conceded more than 40 goals. So I think our defense has us where we need to be this season. And that's why, and I think, I can't remember who said it. Someone was like, well, we've been very bad at conceding from like 0.2 XG this season. And Madrid are good at scoring from 0.2 XG. And it was kind of like flagged as a problem. Look, if the only way people can score against us is through very improbable strikes, that does say how good you are. That is not a problem. If you have to smash one from 35 yards out and has to deflect off 3 people to score against Arsenal, that's the way that it's going to go. But I think the job Arsenal have to do is how do you stop Madrid from getting into half-decent positions? And that's the nightmare scenario out there. But they can be beaten, Johnny. They were not good against Atletico. And before Christmas, they were a mess. So it'll be interesting. I'm just excited to be back in the Champions League, Johnny.
Yeah.
Champions League. And we can sit there and we can talk about playing Madrid in the quarterfinals for weeks, for the next 3 weeks. And it's exciting. And I absolutely love it. But listen, let's get into the first topic of conversation. MLS, a star is born. Me and Matt were on a podcast on Thursday with Jacob. And the question was, will Tuchel start MLS? And my point was, he's going to love giving somebody a debut. Don't know about you, Johnny. I wasn't expecting a goal after 18 minutes. Johnny, talk about the performance, because he didn't just play in one position. He didn't just score a goal. He had a blinder. He was player of the match, right?
Well, he was man of the match, which, if you score on your debut, you probably get it. But it doesn't really tell the whole story. This wasn't just a novelty award because he scored. It's because he was the best player on the pitch. And you're talking about a guy, like I'm very much bought in on this. Special players do special things. How often do we say, big players anyway, oh, it's their debut, and then they end up scoring a goal? Not even strikers, just people who are like, no, because it's time for me to announce myself. Listening to the way that the other fully fledged international players are talking about this guy, he is a chip off the old block. He's been here before, this guy. Doesn't get flustered. No. You hear Declan Rice talking about him, getting very excited. Hey, I saw an interview. Hey, Declan, were you worried for Miles? No. You're talking about no, because I've seen him. This is what he does. He doesn't get flustered. He is the truth. Now, when I think about,
he is the truth.
He is the truth. Like the fact is when I think about the biggest shock I've seen this year, it's him, because with Ethan, I saw it coming. I've been banging the drum for a long time. I didn't necessarily see this coming with MLS. I thought he was an all right player. This guy is high level, and the fact it bounced around, like in terms of comparisons, it's when people say about Ashley Cole, I think that's what we're dealing with now. It's a young Ashley for me, and it's the fact that, and we're not going to talk about character issues, but we're just talking about from a player, the way he stepped in, and from day dot, it was just like, this is where I'm meant to be, and character on the field. Ashley Cole was a nutcase. There was no one who could outcompete him, and that's what it is.
Ashley Cole, he was so good.
I loved Ashley Cole when he was at Arsenal.
Oh.
It was just, it was a difficult end, and he's just a twat. I don't like Ashley Cole in general, but as a football player, absolutely incredible. And MLS has all that without the character issues. As far as I'm concerned, the guy's a top boy, an absolute top boy. Rolls in, looking drippy at the England thing, like I've always been there. Just on point, fleeking, dripping all over the floor. I'll get in there, Miles. You're causing the scene, and you got. Because at the end of the day, he's 18 years old. He'd be forgiven for being a little bit nervous. But these are the quick points I wanted to jump on, Pete. So when you look at what Thomas Tuchel said, and he said that someone asked him, "Where do you see MLS? With his future moving forward, and what's his position going to be?" And Tuchel said, Well, he's going to be a left back that can invert as a double six, and that's what I mean about the tactical nous that you'll get from Thomas Tuchel, which you ain't really getting from Southgate. But he is saying that I've seen what Arteta or how Arteta utilises him, and that moving into the modern era of football is going to be a very interesting position. It's going to be one that I think a lot of teams are going to start to adopt. We've seen, obviously, Guardiola doing it before. Arteta does it all the time now. But this now is the first breed of player where they've come through the academy and they're trained in that. There's no trying to get a pre-existing player to adapt to a new skill. Even Zinchenko, who can play both midfield and left back, it's not like, hey, yeah, I'm going to need this from you. It's just, no, this is what I've always done. And so MLS is a star. Stars make big noise when they get given opportunities. Stars make big noise when they get on big stages, and that's what he did. And ultimately, I think you're talking about, a certified breed of, what a new modern footballer is about. And I can't believe how lucky we are that he's ours, and we've got two of them coming through at the same time. It's quite something.
I actually wanted to ask you a question, Johnny, about this. Obviously, sensitive topic. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But with the kind of pre-game racism, I sometimes get a little bit annoyed by it because I know that people fight back, and and rightly so, and they want to do it. But I kind of feel that some of this stuff is to avoid the true conversation that Arsenal have got another superstar. When we're talking about racism, we're not talking about his talent. And I wanted to get your take on, like, do you think now we can just get to, like, MLS the player, instead of keep on going back to it with these players? Like, we always sort of, there's that don't get pulled into the mud. And I feel like we get pulled into the mud and we avoid having the conversations that we want to have. The conversation that you just had is a massive character. Like, what did Tuchel say about him? He said he's such an open character. He's amazing in camp, full of confidence, full of humor. You see everything on the pitch, off the pitch. He does it with a natural confidence. That's how he plays football, full of courage and quality. He was decisive and opened the game up for us. Those are the conversations that I want to be having. But every international camp, every time we lose a game, we get pulled into these shitty conversations, and then the player is almost defined by the conversations around him instead of the talent. And I think Raheem Sterling, he's been an unbelievable player for England. He's been part of that resurgent success. But so much of the time, we're talking about all the shitheads online, and it's like, when can we get back to having good conversations about who the character of the players, their ability, the things that they do on the pitch, and stop getting dragged into the mud by, like, trolls and internet bots? So that's just wanted to throw that.
No, I don't completely agree, actually, with that. Like, because it's slightly to do with the framing of it. So I understand the point you're making, but your point is a noble one. But the issue is we're not getting dragged into it. The fact is these people are presenting racist observations and judgments on players that we feel passionately about, and we've got to keep calling it out. The fact is, when we talk about racism in football, it's very, one of the things that happens in England is we like to look at other leagues, particularly Spain, maybe Italy, when there are overt racist incidents. And we like to look down our nose a little bit and go, oh, no, look at the state of the racism in their game, and we're right to, don't get me wrong. But what we're not necessarily self-aware of enough is how much subtle racism goes on. So the reason why it's very important to keep challenging these things, whether we don't want to have these conversations, but when they bring it up, it's because there are some people that don't see it as being racist, and it can completely shape the whole prism of how a player can be viewed. And so if we don't call it out for what it is, then suddenly a player who doesn't have character issues has widely understood character issues, because that's all that Graham Souness and Matt Letizia want to talk about, or Jason Cundy. So it's important when we talk about racism in football and the assessment of MLS. I think that some people try to low bar the threshold. They think that modern day racism, if you're not shouting the N-bomb at people, then you're not a racist. No, that's not how it works. It's about being judged differently purely because you are, from a different race, a different cultural background, a different creed, whatever. And with regards to MLS, one of the things, and I've mentioned this before on the pod, and I always come back to the classic kind of couple, if you like, black couple in football was Ian Wright and like a John Barnes, right? And you have your acceptable black in the form of John Barnes. He just had his talent to shine, didn't really rock the boat, wasn't really a noisemaker back in the day, would just, take the racism he got from the stands and not really rock the boat. And you had Ian Wright, who was, and John Barnes even spoke about this, he was much more of an extrovert and out there. He would tell you to fuck off if he needed to, and white society, wider white society in England has always had a big problem dealing with flamboyant, in-your-face black people. There needs to be an element of humility that comes with being black for them to be palatable. And one of the most important things is when you see a guy like Wrighty, is to be able to see him break through that barrier and become loved for being a big character, someone who is willing to stand up and speak out. And MLS has Wrighty energy. That's the point. But
he does have Wrighty energy. That's a very good point.
He has Wrighty energy, but we shouldn't try to crush these people. And the fact is if you look at Ethan, for instance, seems like much more of a, and I mean this with no character, much more of a humble guy. I don't want to use that word with Erling Haaland.
Quiet. I don't even know whether it's humble. I think he's very. I don't think he, the way he talks about himself, it isn't particularly humble. I think he's he's the yin and the yang of two best friends.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, in wider society, in England, in a lot of Western countries, white dominated societies, they will find a character like Ethan much more palatable to deal with because he is less in your face, and you will get less comments about character from Graham Souness about Ethan because he doesn't say anything. It's very easy to get on with someone like that. But MLS has something about him, and to be honest, not everyone needs it, but most of the players at the top level, they need it. And I was really encouraged as well. I saw Alan Shearer talking about this, and he was basically talking about the fact that he really revered MLS's energy and his attitude and his swagger. And he said arrogance, but he's like, I like it. It's not a bad thing. You need arrogance. And Alan Shearer didn't have to, he didn't have to excuse his arrogance because he was the white English captain. But I love the fact that prominent people in the media will come out and support MLS and say, no, of course he should celebrate when Erling Haaland said, who the fuck are you? And he's out there doing fucking meditations. Of course he should. Because why wouldn't it? If you want to be a top player, you've got to be able to wear the pressure. And MLS, he doesn't seem fazed by it at all. And I think that's going to stand him in very good stead for a massive career.
Yeah, I mean, some great thoughts in there. I think more my point is Twitter is not the real world. And I just think, I think back to that. Did you ever see the documentary about Ashley Madison? Is it Ashley Madison? The website you could go and have an affair. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then a hacker group got in because the database was unprotected, and they basically leaked all of these sad old men's accounts who were looking to have affairs. And when they dug into the data, they found out something like, 85% of men were talking to chatbots. It's very sad. So you ruin your marriage and you were getting off to a chatbot. Very sad. And I do sometimes think people say social media has been doing X, Y, and Z. And when you try and say that the whole of the UK is social media, it's wrong. You don't know where those chatbots have come from. You don't know who's controlling those bots. You don't even know which countries these people come from. You don't know which fan bases these people come from. And I always think the difference between Italy, Spain, and England is you don't really get that shit in the stands in England. MLS will have all the fans loving him in the stadiums. After Saka and the three black players missed penalties, in the stands they were supported. And I think we've come a long way. And I just think sometimes when we talk about just like attention seekers on the internet are not reflective of UK society. But the important thing is that people like Alan Shearer step up in the media to go against those sort of the talk sport nonsense. Like, we want to see characters in the game, and I think MLS is a character. But when characters deliver the goods, that's the most important thing. But I had never thought about Miles as a Ian Wright type of character, and that's actually totally spot on. And let's also be clear, Johnny. There aren't many players in the Premier League with that type of character these days. Like, you can't, like, I can't think of many white players that have that sort of character. Like, Harry Kane wasn't a character. Like, you have to go back a few generations to find the sort, where you'd have a team packed full of them. You don't really get it. And I think it's because you have to be so boring to be a footballer now. You have to be a little bit dialed back. You're trained to be dialed back. You're trained not to give enough of yourself. You don't want to be the story in these, highly intense systems now. But, back to the point, let your football do the talking. Let your football do the talking. Let your fashion do the talking. Who gives a fuck? But MLS, people are gonna love him. It's like, and we should also, like, let's be fair here. Swaggery players get shit whatever their skin color is. Ben White, the media went after him. They hated him because he's like, I'm not going to do the England thing. And they put a campaign out against him in the Daily Mail. They went at him. Gareth Southgate went at him, and fans didn't care because fans quite like it.
Can I push back on that? I don't think it's quite the same, Pete. So I'll give you two examples. First of all, swaggery players, yeah, they get a bit of jip, but on the same note, so look, Jack Grealish is a guy who has a lot of swag about him. He's a character like an Ian Wright, like, he's banter with the lads. You see him drinking down down the pub with fans, and also has, got some hardware to show for it, a league winners medal, etc. But when Jack Grealish has indiscretions, getting battered or whatever, it's almost like, there's our boy Jack. Whereas when MLS bursts through, it's more like he's treated as a little bit more of an imposter. That's where the discrepancy lies. When you talk about Ben White, there's a very different reason why Ben White is become a bit of a pariah, and that was because he turned down England. And I dare you, I saw someone coming out there saying he should have a 2-year ban from international duty now that Tuchel's in. I can't remember who it was. It was just nonsense. But the reality is that was seen, that was a besmirchment on your international team. Whereas MLS didn't even do any of that. They didn't turn down England. They just turned up, wanted to play. And it seems that with black players, sometimes
but MLS went on a wind up, and he wound people up.
Yeah, but I don't think...
like you want to, like, he's the sort of guy, like Cristiano Ronaldo would always play the hater card as well. People hated Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, Roy Keane would go after him for the stepovers. Like, he was a swaggery player, and people wanted to knock him down in the early part of his career. Like, I never fucking do anything with those stepovers and that slick back hair. They went after him. They didn't want him to succeed, and then he succeeded, and there it is. And it's also similar with coaches as well. Like, there's an element when you're working towards greatness where people want to chip away at it, and then you land at greatness, and then people shut the fuck up. And Arteta gets far more criticism for everything because he's a person on the way up, and people they don't want him to reach the pinnacle. But I tell you, when he gets that Premier League trophy, you watch how he's treated differently. Pep Guardiola, no one ever goes after him. No one ever says anything about anything that's gone on at Manchester City. It's like Pep Guardiola is a god. Sir Alex Ferguson, the same. Arsene Wenger was called a paedophile. Then he started winning Premier League trophies. So like it's just a general, like, I'm not undermining any of it. I think like the Raheem Sterling treatment, like there is definitely, it happens more to black players, but it does happen to anybody that's climbing that pole to greatness. Everybody wants to knock you down, and then you get to that pinnacle. Even remember David Beckham, the burning effigies or whatever after that little kick out in the World Cup. Like, I mean, he was eviscerated. Let's talk about some bad news. Calafiori hobbled off once again in an Italy game. I don't know whether you saw the incident, Johnny. It was a slip. it was kind of a slip in the middle of the pitch. Like the ball, a pass went somewhere where he didn't expect it. He tried to turn, he slipped on the grass, and it looked like a bit of a knee overextension. He couldn't carry on. He hobbled off. He came back on a plane, and he's back at Colney. The rumours are that it's not that bad. I don't know how people know that it's not that bad before he's had a scan. But more broadly, Johnny, I did want to talk about this because I think Calafiori has been an absolutely disastrous signing for Arsenal on so many levels. Firstly, we could have spent that 40 million on somebody that could have offered our attack a little bit more this season. That putting more money into a centre back that we ended up playing at left back seemed frivolous. Second, this is the second player that Arteta has chased down that plays for Bologna that has a history of injuries, and we signed him anyway. We signed an injury-prone player with a manager that doesn't really look after players in the way that he should. And guess what? He's really injury-prone. And the third thing, he doesn't play centre-back. And I thought him coming in as competition for Gabriel was great because Gabriel could sit on the bench occasionally. He has not sat on the bench. And then MLS does the big breakthrough and he's sitting on the bench again. So, Johnny, my question is, what do you make of this signing? And the second part of the question is, there are rumours Real Madrid are interested in the most handsome Italian on the planet. Would you accept a fee for him, knowing that if Gabriel ever got injured, this guy's not making 5 games in a row?
I mean, I guess to a certain extent, it would depend on the fee. I don't think
60 mil back pocket.
Potentially, yeah, because I do think that I think he's had a good first season. I think there's been issues with his injuries, of course, but on the same note, this is when you're in your first season. There's always often issues, and granted, he might have picked up injuries, but there's been nothing that makes me feel like he couldn't stay fit. Most of it seems like individual issues. The knees do worry me, but on the same note, it's not like it's it's not like last year, for instance, Timber, who wasn't injury prone, within half a game did his ACL. You don't always know, and we've seen players the likes of Robin van Persie injured all the time when he was younger. Suddenly, towards the end of his career, very reliable player. I do think that there is a danger of getting a little bit too complacent with regards to having the best centre-half duo in the team and suddenly thinking, we don't need anyone else. And all of a sudden, like you say, Gabriel comes out with a long-term injury or dare we say it, Big Bill Sleeper. And suddenly we're like, we'll just throw someone else in and it doesn't work. This is a team that is built off of, the only elite unit we currently have is our defensive unit. And if part of what is making us elite is that when our first choice are not there, we have able deputies all of a sudden. We're no longer saying, Cedric, get out there, mate, and try and plug a hole. We've got quality in reserve as well. So I'm not necessarily trying, if we could flip a profit on Cala and if we had someone else coming through, the main issue with regards to, or the main contributing factor that might see us cash in is the guy we just talked about. Calafiori is not our first choice left back. He's far from it. We have other guys who could step in there and arguably do just as good a job when he's there. But what he does offer us is an ability to cover at centre half, and he affords us tactical flexibility. If we were to go to 3 at the back, he probably would be one of the best players that could step in or slot in terms of in a back 3. Obviously, we do have Timber and Ben White who could do it as well, but I think Calafiori offers a very silky, controlled presence on the ball. And so I'd be loath to just handing in that versatility that he gives us cheaply. But yeah, I do think that what he's given us so far could be replaceable. We could find a new solution. But yeah, I also want to just be clear. I don't think that, despite it being frustrating with his injuries, I don't think this is necessarily a Tomiyasu situation. I don't. I feel like next year he could maybe stay fit for most of the year. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, prove wrong, but at this stage, I kind of feel like it's more unfortunate rather than an endemic issue with him.
I think he's a problem, Johnny. I think Arsenal should not have signed him. I think there are so many layers to this signing just being fucking weird in the first place. It's like you watch him playing for Italy and Bologna for a whole season as this dynamic, crazy, mad centre back, just dashing through the middle, doing striker things, carrying the ball like a lunatic. And then you sign him for 45 million or whatever it is, and he comes to Arsenal, and you don't rotate him at all with Gabriel. You shunt him into left back. He's obviously too slow to play in that position, and he's got these creaky knees. And I think having lots of little injuries consistently is just it feeds a narrative. He's injury prone. He's never going to be able to play 10 or 15 games in a row. I just don't think he's going to be built for it. And he's the sort of player that Arsenal should be shifting out before everybody else notices that there's a problem. I think if you went to Madrid, if you went back to Italy, if you could get a good fee for him, and he's only young, he's only a baby, I think it might be worth doing. There's some good left-sided centre backs and I guess it would be a left-sided centre back. I'm thinking about Jarell Hato, Ajax. Remember, we were interested in him. I think he's still a teenager. I think he's the kid at Bournemouth that everybody's looking at the moment. Like Huijsen looks absolutely fantastic. He's also a teenager. And I just wonder, all this talk of Gabriel going to Saudi, I think the person that you've got to shift on could potentially be the biggest problem that we have next season. Having backups that can't manage has caused us problems in the past. It's like Zinchenko as well, like somebody gets injured at left back, Zinchenko can do 6 games and that's it. And then he's out for 3 weeks every single time. And I really want to make sure that we go into next season without having that, if this, then that, and that is really bad, because we've had it over the years. If Saliba gets injured, then that is holding, and that's problematic. This season, if Kai, then Jesus. Like, every time there is somewhere that can get exposed, it gets exposed. You just think of Man City. They literally went into the season with only one striker, and it wasn't a problem. They also went into the season with one DM, and that was a problem. But Arsenal don't really have luck in that front. And I'm just worried that I like Calafiori because he's a luxury. He's a luxury. You 2-0 up, you bring him on with 30 minutes to play, and he'll do something absolutely wonderful, like absolutely beautiful, absolutely Del Piero on the edge of the box, but just over an extended amount of time. I just don't think he's got the legs for the Premier League, and he definitely doesn't have the legs as a left back. I think I prefer to see Yuri and Timber there than Calafiori. All right, let's move on to the next topic of conversation. Bukayo Saka. Bukayo, we spoke about him a little bit in the upfront, Johnny. I think we're all kind of gravitating towards the idea that Saka is going to have some sort of centralized position. Johnny, are we going to keep Marino up top in this system? Because we don't really have a physical monster, space eater, as they call them, in that position. And Marino scored a few goals. Could you see Arteta reshaping the front line and Saka sitting in behind in that sort of Messi-esque style position? Or do you think Marino goes back to midfield as soon as Saka's available? What do you think about this?
So I was reading an article in the Evening Standard about this, and they were talking about Saka central, and I was like, of course, get him in central, But the point they were making was actually not what I'd initially thought, and that was that we've discussed many times on this pod. I've certainly brought it up on a few occasions that if Saka's long-term, and we don't know this to be the case, but if Saka's long-term destiny is to be up front and play as a focal point, and that's only because we've seen the likes of Messi do it, even Ronaldo and Salah's gone up front on a few occasions, then at some point it's a response to a need. And right now we have a need. Our biggest need is up front. So can our best player, do the best patch-up job up there? I think he's got the physicality to do it. He can hold people off. He's fast. He's not a boy anymore. He's a man, and he's a terrifying man to opposition defenders.
Low centre of gravity.
Low centre of gravity. He's got the Kenny Dalglish arse. Just get off me. You bounce off him. He can turn on the sixpence, roll people. His finishing is elite. I actually think it'd be a nightmare up top. But the point they were making is they actually saw him in a deeper lying role, potentially in a kind of, dare I say, an Erdegaard role or a left 8 they were talking about. Because obviously Saka is such a versatile player. I don't really get the left 8 thing. They mentioned that he's played there on a couple of occasions. One of them he scored in the game last year, I think it was. I think he was saying about Wolves. Either way, I can't remember exact game. But the reality is they said that it was an experiment that really has only had one outing, and it would be a lot to ask for him. But the problem, and part of the reason why this has even come up as a conversation, is largely centered around Ethan Nwaneri. And that is that Ethan's a guy who has shown that he has something to offer this team, a team that is still struggling to score goals from open play. And Ethan is shown to be one of our most reliable finishers when he's on. And so can we get a team that doesn't necessarily mean that Saka's return means that Ethan, just goes and sits in a dark room for the rest of the season? Can we get both of them integrated together? And I do think that potentially as a false 9, kind of like what Kai can do, because to be honest, Saka, I think, has all the attributes to be able to do it. But overall, what it comes down to is, do you, and I guess I'll send this back to you at this point, do you think that we will get the most bang for our buck with Saka, being a makeshift striker, but can ultimately roam around, and then being able to involve an Ethan at right wing? Or do you think the smartest play is to just leave our best player in his best position? It suddenly unlocks Martin Ødegaard, who's been, a shell of himself for the last 3 months, and we get more out of him. With Ben White returning as well, we might get that devastating triumvirate back. And so we can rely on that as a means to create. Or, as I say, do you think the most prudent move will be to try and get as many attacking options on the pitch at once, and therefore Saka moving over to accommodate others?
I think you have to have Ethan out on the right. I don't think Ethan can play through the middle. I wouldn't want to put him out on the left. You've got somebody that's scoring goals, that looks electric in most games that he plays. I think you can keep him out on the right. And I think you have to see how world-class is Saka. Can he play through the middle? Can he create? Can he pull things together? Can he cause mass confusion by playing in a bit of a Lionel Messi role? I think he'd be really good at it. I know that, I've been told before that they played him centrally in training in the past. And I just think he's so in control of his game, in control of his body. I think he's strong, powerful, and he strikes fears into defenders. The only concern that I've got is height, but he's so powerful. I'm not sure that it really matters. So I think he's going to play through the middle. I think Ethan sticks to the right, and then I think Martinelli on the left. And then you've got power, pace, control, and a bit of fear factor back in the mix. And hopefully, like you said, Johnny, hopefully we've got a little bit of Martin Ødegaard coming back to form. Johnny, we have got to the end of the podcast because I am getting death glares over here because I've got things to do. But listen, if you are listening to this podcast, we did a little bit of a free one on a Saturday because it's international break. But if you like this sort of content and you want more, you can go to patreon.com/the Arsenal Opinion, and you can sign up for a membership for free for 7 days. And then you get all of your content advert free. And if you like reading as well, go to legrove.co.uk and you can sign up for a membership there and you get premium writing. And there's a post up there today ready in your inbox if you would only submit your beautiful data to me. I promise I will not sell it to erectile dysfunction data brokers. All right. On that note, we will say thank you for listening. Remember, if you listen to this later on iTunes, give us a 5-star review. And on that note, I'm going to turn off the loop and I'm going to say ciao for now. Ciao for now, everybody.